You're listening to We Do Recover, the podcast that proves recovery is possible and connection is powerful. On today's episode, the handsome hunk Troy Meyer drops into the studio to dish out his raw experience, unshakable strength, and a whole lot of heart. Over the next hour, we're diving deep, so get ready to connect with Troy in a way that just might surprise you. Let's jump into today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 174. I'm sitting here with Troy Meyer today, a colleague, a friend, an amazing human being. I can't wait to get to his story. He's here to share some experience, strength, and hope. Troy, how are you doing today, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for playing it cool and not mentioning that this is our third or fourth attempt.
I think it's 4.
We're getting stuff down.
Yeah.
We're learning, and Troy's a good dude for sticking through it. So we're going to get to Troy's story, and I just appreciate your patience.
Yeah, man.
Before that, though, we want to show some love to some people that show love to us, right? Yeah. Show love right back to support the people that support you. That's Diamond Detox. If you or your loved one is looking for an incredible detox experience, I'm talking private room, private TV, like super nice therapeutic mattresses. I just can't say enough positive things. Great staff, great food about Diamond Detox. Check them out. You can call them at 385-5332, or you can check out their website at diamonddetox.com. I also want to show some love to Wasatch Crest. Wasatch Crest is a leading provider of mental health and substance abuse. They have a men's facility. It's in Heber. Gorgeous, amazing basketball courts, tennis courts, great staff, a lot of trauma-focused therapy going on there. And then they have a separate women's residential as well. That's in Park City. And again, good trauma therapists, master's level therapists at both buildings. They have more than just residential, though. They have transitional housing. They have day treatment. They have IOP. They have virtual IOP. Yeah, contact them by giving them a call at 385-644-1500 or check out their website at wasatchcresttreatment.com. We appreciate both of those agencies. I'm big on listen, if it's coming to you from here, it's because I trust them.
Mm-hmm.
I would never have a sponsor that I didn't legitimately feel good about promoting and talking about to my audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Rise Up Sups. That's right. Troy, I gave you some supplements a week ago. Whoa, what'd you think, man? Thank you.
Yeah, they were great. I appreciate it. I have to keep reminding you to say it because it's your brand, but you always focus on helping other people with theirs, but it's yours. So here I am to help you make sure that's out there. But
my man.
Yeah, man. I've taken a few of those types of supplements before. And like you and I had a conversation earlier, I did notice a difference, especially with the mood.
Mindful mood.
Blue
bottle.
Yeah, the blue bottle. Yeah, very calming effect, and then, like I said, I actually slept really well that night. And then I did take the other one as well. What's it called?
Mind Shift.
The
red bottle.
Yeah, the red bottle. Red or blue. I'll tell you, red or blue.
Got a little fire and ice going on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Mandy, bring me a whole bottle of Mindful Mood. I need it in this moment.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, I've taken supplements like that before and didn't really feel an effect, or maybe I was searching too hard, but I definitely did feel, that shift. So, didn't feel too much, wasn't too powerful, wasn't, overstimulating, anything like that. So
love it, bro. Thank you. I appreciate the testimony on those nootropics. And I feel like nootropics are just becoming more and more popular as people are looking for alternative pharmaceutical ways to just feel better, think better, memory recall, concentration, right? Well, yeah, if you're interested.
In it are great too. Like when I was reading it and researching it, shouldn't even have to be able to be pounding 10 energy drinks, or stuff like that, right? So yeah, the ingredients in it are a lot more clean, stuff like that. So yeah.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. If you guys are interested in checking that out, go to riseupsups.com. That's RISEUPS.com. At checkout, punch in promo code podcasts in all caps 20. Save yourself 20% off the entire purchase.
Yeah.
Love it, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, we're rocking. We're right back in the groove,
right.
baby. Let's go.
Roll.
Let's go. Okay, so we have a very simple format today, Troy. It's what was life like? what happened, and what's life like now.
Okay.
So let's get to, beforehand. What was life like before active addiction? Like, talk to me about little Troy. What did life kind of look like, maybe growing up or junior high, high school? What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So I came from, born and raised northern Utah. Dad was a severe alcoholic, cocaine, meth addict. Mom was a huge enabler. So growing up in that environment, was normal for me. Had a sister that was 16 years older than me, so she was more of like a mother figure. She had her own issues, mental health and substance abuse, but yeah, man, it was my family, So, I was essentially like an only child because I was so much younger than my sister. She had her own family. Like my niece, she was 3, or I was 3 when she was born, so I was an uncle at the age of 3.
16 years is a huge gap.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, different dad, same mom.
So you had the genetics for addiction.
Yeah.
Sounds like you had kind of some of the family systems, and yet you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It was my norm, right? Product of my environment. So, yeah, I just grew up in it, didn't, it was just the way of life, and I didn't realize how dysfunctional it was until years later once I got clean and then definitely started working in the industry.
So much easier to look back and have 20/20 vision,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like, dang, that's crazy.
Totally. Okay, so next question. There's like recreational or experimental or, social use, and then there's like addiction. When did addiction take hold for you? What did that look like? Talk as much or as little as you're comfortable with.
I mean, I was probably your recreational for the time I was 16 till, I started, using meth on a daily basis, and I was about 21 then. So partied, stuff like that through high school, kind of did your normal. I mean, what I guess you would assume normal is drinking and doing weed and pills, whatever, here and there. But
That
never
experimental phase.
Yeah. Right. Like trying to fit in with the culture, the people that are doing it, people that you thought would never do it, and they're doing it. Like, and I think that, like, kind of a perspective, that I've always seen is, people are like marijuana is the gateway drug. Like, I could see where some way, shape, or form that's true because, you're always told not to do them, right? And then you do it and you're like, oh, I'm not dead.
It's not
This
that
isn't that
bad.
bad, right? And it's kind of an adrenaline, like getting away with it, stuff like that, being deceitful, stuff like that. But
Typically
then,
happens in a phase of life where we're in like a rebellious stage or a curious stage.
absolutely.
We feel like, a teen, sounds like for you teens, you shared 16 to 21. We feel like we're invincible. We can't be harmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then, your weed dealer's doing this, and then, pills or whatever else, and you try that, So, I mean, that's kind of how I got into it, more in depth than just, occasionally drinking on the weekends, in high school. So, yeah, like when you're around people that, that product's there and they're not dying or whatever, like it's intriguing, why not? I also don't want to be the guy that's not doing it, because my insecurities. So,
do you think growing up did you know that like your siblings father had like substance abuse, or was that something you found out later in life?
I didn't know that it was abuse until, like my dad went to jail when I was like 20,
Okay.
So I just thought that's what people do, like, I mean, I remember like, playing in the living room. I was probably like 8 or so, maybe, and pulling the couch cushion off, and there was a big bag of cocaine in there, that my dad had in there, stuff like that. Like, that was just normal. I wasn't like, whoa, what's this? Like freaking out, it was just,
Probably didn't even
there's
know what it
always
was at
stuff
8 years
around.
old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, here, mom, found this, or here, dad, whatever, but yeah, man, like, it was just kind of the way of life, but I never felt like scared or, like I was in danger or anything like that,
Got ya.
maybe because it was just normal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. So from 16 to 21, kind of some recreational use, social use. What did that look like? It sounds like 21's when you shared it became daily.
Yeah.
Take me to that point in time in your life, and what did that look like?
Yeah. So I started like just dealing meth. I was dealing marijuana quite often, and then had some guys that was buying that wanted, something else, and they said, "Can you get crystal?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, feel like that's what homeless people do, because I didn't know, but like, hey,
What you didn't know is that eventually it makes people homeless because
yeah,
it's so addictive.
absolutely, which, like the homeless population, they're mostly struggling with mental health issues anyways, right? Which is, you know, that's what we try to teach our kids too. Like they're still humans. My perspective as a young kid was not that, you know what I mean? But I think it takes us getting clean and working in this industry to have that empathy and compassion for other human life that, a lot of people don't have an opportunity, So, but yeah, just started dealing meth, here and there, and it's kind of intriguing. So I'd try it, once a month or so, and snorting it, and then just demand got more and more, and my dealer he would smoke it, so I was like, oh, let me try that. Yeah. I remember the first time I did it, I was like, whoa, that is completely different than snorting it. So yeah, then started smoking it, and you know, needed it day in and day out from there on.
Just the progression of the disease, right?
Yeah.
It goes from like they talk about, you know, is it a disease? Is it a choice? The truth lies in between both of those. It's a
Mhm.
disease of choice, right? It starts off as a choice, and over time it becomes your tolerance goes up, the frequency goes up, the amount you're using goes up. Pretty soon, before you know it, you're just dependent.
Yeah, it's no longer a choice.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that essentially kind of what happens?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I couldn't go without it. I didn't feel like I could function, do anything without it, even call somebody or talk to them. Like, I had to be high no matter what I did.
I'm also interested, just like the clinical side of me, is it's interesting when you get somebody who starts selling substances, right? My mind always goes to they were just trying to keep up their habit,
Mhm.
right? Because people typically who are selling it are dependent on it, run out of hustles or run out of resources, run out of money, whatever you want to call it. And so they've turned to buying it cheaper, selling it for more so that they can get theirs. What did that look like for you?
I mean, at first, it definitely wasn't that. Like, I even remember in high school, like, I was diagnosed with ADHD in like seventh grade. So in high school, like, I would get Dexedrine and, like Adderall, right? And I
Yeah.
would sell it, to like our buddies that would party all the time because then they can go to school and wake up and all that stuff. So, like dealing for me was an insecurity issue within myself, right?
Okay.
I wanted to feel seen, heard, loved, valued, some way or form of just wanting to feel loved, And, when you're dealing, you feel like you're the man's man, and people are calling you and, they're on your time and all that stuff. So, that identity was a big part of my insecurities of, why I dealt until I got in fully into my addiction. Then, of course, I'm dealing for, skimming some off of their bag to support my habit, all those things or whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah, the desperation starts to set in. I appreciate you sharing that. And you said a word identity that makes total sense because when you're, 16 to your early 20s, identity is a huge part. Like you're trying to
yeah.
figure out who am I? Who are you? How do I fit in this world? Who are my people? All that. Frankly, I remember, my identity was wrapped up in sports,
Mhm.
and when
Oh,
that
yeah.
came to an end, it was like, well, who am I now? Right.
Yeah.
That was a death of identity. And so, I think as I listen to your story and I've listened to other people's, journeys of recovery, there's always kind of the teens to 20s, man. It's
Yeah.
what it seems like that's when it hits the hardest.
Well, yeah, and because I mean, from my experience, but I'm sure that it's the same as a lot is, we kind of have a voice, like that combativeness with our parents. They don't know what they're talking about. I know everything, stuff like that, especially being a parent and experiencing that, you're like, okay,
You're on
man.
the other
Yeah.
side now,
Yeah.
boy.
Right. Like, but yeah, like I feel like that's that pivotal moment, is through their teens and then that, younger 20s, like, I remember like moving out right after I graduated high school when I was 18. Like I'm an adult now,
Mm.
like I know it all. I'll figure it out, and realizing I had no idea what I was doing, you know. So I think it's just, listen to your parents. They actually know what they're talking about.
They may have been through it
They may have
themselves.
been through it themselves,
Yeah.
whether they're transparent with you or not, they actually do.
Great point. And I'm glad we touched on that. I don't think that people wake up one day and go, I want to be addicted to methamphetamines, or I want to be addicted to heroin, right?
No.
It's like the root is so much deeper than just that.
Yeah. I
So-
remember through my teen years, I don't remember how old I was, maybe 15, 16, having a discussion with my mom about my dad. And I remember, like, I'll never be like my dad. There's no way,
Mm.
I'd never do that. And I was exactly who my dad was, like it was eye-opening, years later, but there's also a part, like, my parents did the best that they could with what they had,
For
from
sure.
their own trauma as a child, and trying to raise, a kid that is going down the same path,
Kind of goes back to that. You just don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So take me through, you say, your dealer was smoking, and so you kind of got into it and it became heavier, and just the progression, right? Talk to me about, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I do think it's important, for people to relatability, and you can't know the light if you don't know the dark. So
Yeah.
what did active addiction look like? Like, what were some of the financial tools, physical tools, relationship stuff? How long were you in active addiction for? Give me that chapter in your life.
Yeah. So yes to all of those, right? Financial, relationships, all that, that was all on issues.
The team at Diamond Detox is compassionate, helpful, and trained to support every step of the healing journey. Your loved one's path to a healthier, happier life starts with a free and easy 20 to 30-minute assessment over the phone, or a few questions submitted online on the Diamond Detox website. Assessments and admissions occur 7 days a week, depending on availability. To begin the path to recovery, visit diamonddetox.com or call 385-988-5332.
I just, like I told you earlier, anger was my primary emotion, right? Meth definitely didn't help out with that. You know what I mean? Especially being logical. But I definitely ruined a lot of relationships. I remember, like, two of my best friends, like Carson and Cole, being like, what are we going to do with this guy? They're successful. I'm comparing myself to them all the time. They got families, or they're, making money,
and these are your two best friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
From a young age, and then, I had my oldest daughter when I was 20. The relationship with her mom was super toxic. Like, I just wasn't like I said, I was exactly who my dad was, right? So there's a lot of dysfunction there, relationships with my mom, my sister. My dad had went to prison after my daughter was born. Like, the first time he saw her was through glass at Salt Lake County. She was just a baby, and he missed out on the first couple of years of her life. But in that time, that's where, my addiction really started. Was my daughter was probably one, maybe 1.5, where I was dealing, kilos of weed, and then the meth got introduced, and that was just intriguing, and I'd used it, I'd use it like once a month or whatever. I remember the first time I used it like it was yesterday. And yeah, man, once I started dealing it more and going over to my dealer's house, they were all smoking it, so it was like kind of like that thing that I was talking about, well, if they're doing it, this way, I'll do it this way. And
right,
that
product of the environment that you were spending time in.
Yeah. And so, yeah, jumping into smoking it from snorting it, and that was such a, increase in the high that, I was like, this is the best thing ever. I felt like Superman 24/7, untouchable. And, my ego definitely showed through there too, right?
It's crazy that
Yeah.
the lies we believe, right, when that chemical's in our body, right? Because I'm
Oh,
sure, like I totally get it. Talk to me about the like progression of it.
Mhm.
In other words, were you like a functional methamphetamine user for 5 years? Like, when did it kind of start to really get to the desperation of your addiction?
I would say maybe like 6 months to a year, maybe more around a year of using. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a blur, but I would probably say maybe 6 months. Once it became a daily thing, I'd go to work, got my daughter, like my ex didn't know what I was into, stuff like that, and yeah, I just tried to still have that persona of this is still who I am, but having this other relationship with this drug in my life, right? So as we do, most of us, we protect that relationship, protect that addiction. It's what's filling that void, a big void, in my life. But jobs were always really the thing that I kind of like my timeline would show of when I was really bad or not. But,
Because you'd lose jobs?
oh yeah, left, right, center. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would, yeah. I mean, I would work 16, 18-hour days because I was high, for 3 or 4 days straight. But then not show up for the
Go
next 3
MIA.
days. Yeah. Right. They'd be like, what? I'm like, yeah, but I just worked all like, that entitlement. Right.
Sure.
And yeah, just once it was just, I was like, well, I might as well just deal instead of go to work, stuff like that. And yeah, man, it just became super dysfunctional where I was stealing and just, the day to day hustle and grind of trying to, stay high.
Right. And I can relate to that. And I appreciate you sharing that. I know that some of that stuff's not always the easiest stuff to share, right?
Yeah.
So did there ever become a moment when you were like, this is crazy, like something's got to change? A lot of people refer to as the rock bottom. What did that look like in your life?
I mean, I know I had, and I think most of us had a lot of those, right? That's what we did with them, Like I remember seeing shadow people, like, I remember looking out the window, as we do, the blind shifter, right? Like seeing shadows across the street and taking a baseball bat over to my neighbor's house and like, running around their car and realizing it was just their side mirror. Like it wasn't a head, it was just a side mirror, right? Like
insanity.
But that, right, exactly. Like that delusional mindset. And I mean, like that could be an eye opener, like what, right? But that was just part of the life, and my family had held like a mini intervention with me. My dad was out of prison. I remember him showing up with he and my mom, which they were divorced at the time, and two of my friends, Carson and Cole, they came over the house, like, we're worried about you. And I'm like, yeah, I need help, but I had no resources, no plan, anything like that. It was just kind of like, hey, we're worried about you. And I'm like, yeah, I need help. I was miserable. And this was about a year and a half before, I ended up going to jail and getting clean. So, yeah, I had a lot of those moments, but the big pivotal moment was I ended up going on a like 4 or 5 day bender, didn't sleep that whole time, ended up sleeping for a few days, and I woke up and was driving into Ogden to go buy some more and was speeding, I've always kind of had a lead foot, but especially when you're wanting to go get high, you're on it. So I get pulled over and the highway patrolman, I have 5 warrants out for my arrest. So he puts the cuffs on me and searching me and finds an empty bag of resin in my coin pocket and some cash. And he was like, what's this? I'm like, it's meth. And like I said, I had wanted to get clean, man. I just couldn't. I
didn't have an alternative path.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me pausing real fast, I wanted to share a little thought on that. And maybe it's just, again, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I feel like back then there wasn't as much talk about treatment. There wasn't as much talk about recovery. There wasn't, like, I've had many conversations with my mom where she was like, I just thought people that had drug problems just went to jail. Like, I didn't know there was anything else than just go to jail and get off the drugs in jail. Right. That was like the solution at the time. And on a deeper level, that's one of the big reasons I do this podcast. It's not to come on and share all these crazy stories or the shock factor, glorify. It's really so people know, like, hey, if you're going through this, if you've experienced this, there's a way out. That's outside of just jail.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I didn't know that.
Neither did I.
Like my
Neither
family
did my
didn't know it.
family.
My dad went to prison for 2 years because of DUIs. Like there just wasn't that rehabilitation talk, it just wasn't there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But I feel like, and you know, you might experience this too, is like working in the industry, there's like two worlds. There's the
Oh, for
normal world and then
sure.
there's our industry world, right? Which we assume everybody, but then like I have friends that, you know, they don't know anything about treatment and they're like, wait, there's that, you know, like there's options for that. Like, yeah, there's a lot, you know,
Yeah.
some good, some bad, but there's still a lot of people that don't even know that there's options out there. You know?
Absolutely. So you didn't know that there was options at the time. Highway patrolman pulls you over. He finds a small like shake bag on you. You're like, yeah, it's meth. You know, at this point, you're ready to get some help. Where does it go from there?
So he locks me up. I call my dealer. You know, they impound my mom's car. So I call my dealer because immediately I want to get high. Like that's where I was going, you know, is to get high. Dealer comes, bails me out. One of my buddies that I used with, my mom actually really liked him. He went to my mom, said, hey, Troy's car was, you know, we came up with this elaborate plan, right? Like I was working and I parked it in a no parking zone, which I didn't
Sure.
know. But they won't release it because, you know, it's my mom's car, right? Big old story. Great idea. It worked, right? Mom believed everything. And yeah, you know, mom got her car out and then I went back on to using, right? So when I was locked up or when I was arrested at that time, you know, it usually takes like a couple months. I think it was about 3 months before I was sentenced, right? So I just kept using. Yeah, my dealer came, bailed me out. Yeah, I still used for a couple months, you know, and then sentencing day came and it was November 10th of 2008 and I'd partied the whole weekend before because I had a feeling I was going to jail. I just didn't know for how long. But then I also thought I wasn't going to go to jail, you know, like there was that like little glimpse, like maybe I won't, but I promise I'll quit if I don't.
But in case I do, I better get this partying thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to go
I,
hard, right?
I can relate.
Which
Yeah.
I did like really hard. Didn't sleep for a few days, but like that morning, used in my mom's bathroom. She takes me to court as I'm walking in. Like this is how like hopeful I was that I wasn't going to go to jail. As I still had my, you know, pipe and my lighter in my pocket, and like just that little, you know, just holding on to that last moment, right? Because none of us addicts really do that.
That's
right?
insane. Had you ever been through like the metal detectors with the cops and all that?
Yeah. Well, so that's where I got scared because
Okay.
like they're gonna, you know, that's gonna go off and I'm gonna have to empty my pocket. So
Wait.
I actually take it out and just throw it in the garbage can right before I walk through the metal detectors. And like I even thought like I'm gonna go back when the judge doesn't sentence me. I'm gonna go back and grab it and then go because
Sure.
I know where it is. Right. Like that's how you know
Delusional, the thought process.
exactly
Yeah.
right, as most of us addicts know
Yeah.
to the T. So walk in, get pulled up before the judge, and he's like, "This is a felony charge, and I'm sentencing you to 30 days." And I was like, "Thank goodness, only 30 days." But like, I've never been sentenced before because I've always been bailed out of jail and on probation.
Okay,
Like,
so you'd done a few days and then you were out.
yeah, I mean, the most in like a 10-year period, I maybe did a couple days, you know, like,
Yeah.
but my mom was always like, it ripped her apart. So she did whatever half the time when I was on my way to the jail, my mom would already be there with a bail bondsman before I was even, you know, booked in.
Yeah.
Like that's how, you know, codependent and enabling my mom was.
And
right?
also maybe just that deep fear of watching your dad be incarcerated and now your
Yeah.
son too,
Well, my
right?
dad and her previous husband, and then her dad as well, you know,
Yeah.
all struggled with alcoholism.
Trauma response.
Yeah. Percent.
Mm.
So yeah, I go in and he sentenced me to 30 days and they handcuff me and take me away. And I could hear my mom crying and she was right there, you know, right behind me, right beside me. And I couldn't even look back at her. You know, it was just like, but it was also like, finally, you know, like like that day that I was arrested by that highway patrolman, I was like, finally, like, thank you. And then, you know, they're like, okay, you can bail out. And I'm like, you know, here I am.
Turned you back over to your
Yeah.
own will.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, was booked into jail. That was November 10th of 2008. So
Is that your clean date?
yeah, well, you know, I keep it as that because like that's the day I was locked up. But like my dad and Lexi are like, it's actually the 11th because you used that day. Whatever. Give me a day. Don't give me a day. Whatever. I'm not counting anymore. You know. Yeah, that was the day I was locked up, and I remember my cellmate. So we're in Arno, right, where they figure out, making sure there's no gang affiliation, stuff like that. So they hold you for
Right.
like 24 hours, figuring out who you are and what population they can put you in. And my cellmate's getting transferred from the state pen. He's like this young kid, and he's in there, and I'd been partying all weekend, so I just want to sleep,
Mm,
don't want to eat, just want to sleep. And I like give him my food, and he thought I was like God, dude. He's like, dude, you're the coolest dude ever. Like,
right.
you sure I can have all your food? I'm like, yeah, man, please just eat my food, and
Well, and let's use food as a rough term.
yeah, 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 it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of, my get go into, you know, kind of figuring it out, but it was rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Got you. So was there something that kind of, how did you go from, okay, I'm being incarcerated for 30 days, like you shared before, previous times you'd been in there for a few days, got ordered released, or, your mom bailed you out. Sounds like
Mhm.
that's what happened most of the time. What was different this time? Like, obviously 30 days is different.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like your time in jail. Did you wake up and look around and go like, this is going to be my future if I don't do something different? What was that experience? And how did you take that step towards a life in recovery? What did
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because this is how like naive I was to like the system, the jail system was. I'm in there for 30 days and I'm like maybe a week in. I'm having like panic attacks. Like I'm on the top bunk, I can put my hand on the ceiling. I feel like
Oh,
I'm in
yeah.
a coffin, right? Like
Oh.
if we've ever experienced it, it's not great, but I mean, I'm in there, and remember my cellmate, his name was Thumper. He was a gangbanger out of West Valley. He was institutionalized since he was like 12. And I'm in there and I hear some of the other inmates like talking about getting out on good time. So I asked the corrections officer, hey, can I get some paperwork for a good time so I can get out early? Right. He's like, yeah, I'll come back. Right. He comes back a couple hours. He's like, Meyer. And he's like, you're only in here for 30 days. You don't get out on good time. And I was like, oh, but you know what? Like if that was an option, I probably would have done whatever I could to get out, even if it was a week earlier, and I would probably be still using, right? Like those little interventions that happened needed to happen for things to happen for me to get clean.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it was rough, man. Like, one thing that I learned in there too was like just stay in your lane. There's people in here that have bigger, charges and sentences than you, and they don't care about you, and they'll mess with you to get you more charges, because anything in jail is a felony, right?
You're a 30-day guy. You're entertainment
Yeah,
to them.
like exactly. Like, and they'll mess with you, and then what? Right. So, yeah, I just learned to stay in my lane, don't get wrapped up in all the stuff. And that pivotal moment was actually in jail. That had been in there so November 10th is when I was booked. And let's see, Thanksgiving's a couple weeks later, right? Yeah, like 14, 15 days later. I call home and talk to my mom. And as I'm talking to my mom, we do a 3-way call with my daughter. So Alexia, this time's like 6, right? And I've been pretty abstinent, on and off through the first, 5 years of her life, right?
Yeah.
With my addiction, 6 years, and yeah, she gets on the phone and she was like, Daddy, when are you going to come see me? It's Thanksgiving. And I'm like, I can't. And she didn't know where I was. And she's like, well, families are supposed to be together on Thanksgiving. Like, you're supposed to be here. And I'm like, I just can't. And like, she just started crying, and like the disappointment in that little girl that I had caused ripped me apart. I mean, it was the most pain that I had felt in years. Now I'm in jail with nothing to supplement with.
Nothing
Right.
to numb out with.
Nothing. Right. And yeah, man, it ripped me apart. And I remember crying and ending the phone call. And I had my hand up on the wall, or my head up on the wall, and trying to collect myself so that the other inmates don't see me crying, because that's a form of weakness, stuff like that. And yeah, it ripped me apart, man. Like it hurt, And a couple days later, on a Sunday. So like 3 days after Thanksgiving, there's a guy in there in his mid 50s, late 50s, calls home to speak to his wife and his son. And his 22-year-old son had committed suicide Saturday night. So that experience with my daughter and then watching this guy lose his one and only child was like, I mean, there was a reason that I was sentenced at that time with that group.
With
Like,
that dude.
exactly. Like, talk about like, like a spiritual experience. Like that's what I needed at that time.
Reality just slapped you in the face.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I can relate, and this is your episode, so I won't share a ton, but there's something about the kids that just hits different, right?
Mhm.
You see them, they don't understand, they don't get it. All they want is their dad to be there. And how do you explain to this innocent, beautiful kid all the regrets and all the mistakes and all the chaos that got you to the point that you're at right then?
Yeah. It's
Been there.
You can't. I think the only way, and I tell people this that have children, like, like the wife is like, my husband's struggling. Like, what do I tell my kids? And the only way to really explain it is a kid knows how it feels to be sick, and just say that daddy's sick and he's going to go get help to feel better. Right. It's kind of the only way, because it's so much deeper than that. I didn't get to have those conversations until my daughter, grew up and was able to obtain the information. She had her version, and I had mine, and I can't dismiss her version. Right. But I can also give some light to who, what, when, where, and why.
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember, as I was going through, my divorce and custody battle and all this stuff, I knew the weekends I would have my kids. And so, of course, I would try to get clean, for a couple days, or at least get through the weekend, which resulted in me being dope sick, right? Because heroin was my drug of choice. And I can remember one time I was saying goodbye to my daughter, and I remember her turning and looking at me and saying, "Daddy, please don't die." And I said, "Dad's not going to die. Why do you think I'm going to die?" And she said, "Well, every time I see you, Dad, you're sick." And I remember, dude, that hit me like Mike Tyson just uppercut.
Yeah.
And those are the moments, I think, that, for me anyways, that can help bring us out of it. Is that innocent kid going like, something's not, they can feel it. They can tell.
Yeah. They're smarter than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, being vulnerable and sharing some of that stuff. And to me, like, I just got a ton of respect for you. I'm sure today, looking back on it, it's a lot easier than it was in that moment.
Yeah.
But I am going to ask you, where does your story go from there? You're incarcerated. You've just had kind of these spiritual experiences, these wake up moments. Did you go to treatment? At the end of 30 days, did you hit the rooms?
I don't know.
What did early recovery, baby, let's not even call it early, right? What did infant baby recovery look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, another thing, like the day I was released, that gentleman that lost his son came into my cell. And I wish I knew his name, because I feel like it'd be really helpful that he knows that impact that he had, and his son had on me and my daughter. But he came in and he's like, "Dude, you got to get off the stuff, man." Because when my son needed me there the most, whether he could have helped his son or not, he needed to be there, and he couldn't because of meth. And so, like, that emotion from my daughter on Thanksgiving Day, watching that guy go through hell of losing his son, and then him saying that, I'm like, this is my opportunity. So, I was released December 10th, 2008.
As they say, man, God speaks through other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just sucked that it had to be that way. But I think that I needed that big of an impact for something to be real. Right. Because my dad went to prison. Like, that wasn't enough for me to stop all the stuff. Right. And so I get out of jail, go check in with APMP, because now I'm a felon. And I realized at 26 years old that I make really poor choices by myself, So thank goodness I had a probation officer to make those choices for me.
At least you had the awareness, bro, because me and you both know that there are people that still don't have that awareness.
Yeah. Right. Like, it's just, that's like kind of like the surrender process that we talk about. Like, if your willingness is there, you also have to surrender. Right. Because as we know, a lot of us addicts and the people that we also help, like, it's when you feel out of control, that's when you control the most. Right. And so, like, people that are struggling with mental health or substance abuse, like, sometimes you just need to like surrender and just trust the process. There are some bad programs out there, stuff like that, that don't have the best interest. There are also are a lot of great ones, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes it doesn't matter where you go, it's the work that you do and what you're willing to do.
I
So,
totally subscribe.
yeah. So it's that's kind of where I was at. I realized that I had made really poor choices myself. And yeah, now I'm mandated to do the DORA program at Davis Behavioral Health, right?
Good old DBH.
Yeah.
They didn't have the MRC back then, Men's
No.
Recovery Center.
No. It was strictly outpatient.
What year is this?
2008.
Okay,
2008.
so yeah, the MRC must have came later.
Yeah.
Because that's the pro. It's funny we both went to DBH.
Yeah.
What? Davis
man.
County boys.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay, DORA program. Yeah.
So do the DORA program. And it was, man, like half of the people in group are still high and drunk, like nodding out. Like, and half of them are felons as well. And probation's like, you can't hang out with other felons. Like, that's a violation of probation. I'm like, you got me in group with other felons. This makes no sense. But, I'm not here to complain. I'm just going to trust the process, right? Like, I could come up with all the justifications, right?
So, and guess what? I'm sure they've heard them all.
Oh, yeah. You don't say. So, yeah, man, I finished that. And when this time, like, I'd met my current wife, Lexi, when I was in my active addiction. I actually it's actually kind of a funny story. People are like, how did you meet? And they're expecting this cute little romantic story. I met her in a crack house that I used at, right? She never used meth, but one of her friends did that came over to that house. And so, she showed up.
She was probably there with eyes wide open.
Yeah, like, well, we kind of like hit it, which I think that you're just so naive at some points in that age. She was probably, I don't know, I was like maybe 24, 25. So she was maybe 19, 20. She's like 5 years younger than me. And
well, and you say crack house. Let's keep in mind we're in Utah.
Yeah. It was an apartment.
Okay. It wasn't like, right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there were some in Ogden that I would, frequent, but it was like, we just played darts.
I bet she didn't know she was walking into a crack house.
No.
The point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, exactly. All guys our age, stuff like that, right? And she got bit by the guy's pit bull. He latched onto her arm and we had to get a broomstick, roll his head. Like, it was gnarly. Latched onto Lexi's arm. We're all, make it short, but everybody's like, we got to go. Like, the cops are going to come. I'm like, she needs to go to the hospital. She can't, I'm like, you need to go to the hospital, right? So I'm at the kitchen table, like kind of cleaning her arm up, stuff like that. She had some puncture wounds in her arm. And then that's when MySpace was out. So she leaves that night, goes to the hospital, stuff like that. And I would hit her up on MySpace and she would never reply. And she was probably like, this dude's a poser, like, dork. So it was probably a year or so later. That's when I get out of jail and meet her again, right? And so we meet again, and here we are 16 years later, So she was that accountability part that we need to be held.
Oh, yeah.
She was that person. She was like, you can't talk to people like that. You can't do this. You can't, stuff like that. Like, she helped like bridge the gap with my ex in regards to my daughter. You know what I mean? Because I was still so emotionally reactive to that relationship that it didn't benefit mine and my ex's relationship. And it wasn't fair to her for me to be that way and or to my daughter.
Yeah, you were trying to fight fire with fire and she came in with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Lexi was a big, part of that. And yeah, she just held me accountable. Like, I remember her saying, what do you want to be? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never been a goal-oriented.
Little motivational interviewing question.
Yeah, she's
cool.
She still does it to this day,
Smart woman.
But yeah, I was like a forklift driver and a security guard at a bar. She's like, what do you want to be? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, well, I don't want to be with someone that doesn't know what they want to be, And so things just kind of happened. And it's kind of a crazy story because like I went against the grain about my recovery. Like, I grew up in the rooms. My dad was active in the rooms for years, even though he was constantly using or relapsing or whatever. So I resented the rooms for a long time, So I'm like, the rooms don't help people. Look at my dad, right? Until I started working in the industry, started doing some of my own work, figuring out it's not the rooms, it's my dad, right? My
Totally.
dad's, here, but he's got 9 years of sobriety
It goes
now.
back to that classic saying, I am an AA guy, right? It helped me. It gave me community. It gave me, a sponsor
Connection.
and mentor, all the stuff that why we promote it, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to share there is that respect there, but I get this all the time, especially when working with clients. NA, whatever, doesn't work for me. And I literally will audibly start to laugh and I'll say, and that's the problem. And they look at me so confused and they're like, what do you mean that's the problem? And I say, it's not supposed to work for you. You're supposed to work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Just like anything, right? Like even people that aren't struggling with, substance abuse, they could take the 12 steps and implement it some way, shape, or form in their life.
Bro, I do it. When I have non-12 steppers
Yeah.
come to me for counseling, right? And I'm working with them. I 12 steps the crap out of them. They just don't know we're doing step 1 or step 2 or step 3. It's the principles, right?
Yeah.
You can take somebody through the principles of the steps without doing, and have them do assignments that are very similar to
The
book
12
work.
steps. Yeah.
And guess what? It works. And then at the end, they're like, and I did it without the 12 steps. And I just am like, sure you did.
Yeah. But you know what? Like the reason my dad is sober today is because of the rooms, right? Even though it failed him years and years, right? He failed. That's his family. That's his community. That's his connection. It's his purpose, besides myself, my wife, and my kids, because he's very active in our lives. You know what I mean? Like my kids, he's like, when Lexi and I just went to Jamaica, him and his fiance, they stayed at our house with our kids. Like they're very active in our lives now. And
he has like 9 years at this point, like today.
Yeah, I think, he's at like 9.
Nice.
Yeah.
Around-ish.
Yeah.
If he's out there and listening to this, I love it.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Jim Huffman. I'm the founder and CEO of Wasatch Crest Treatment Services. We're located in Heber City, Utah, amongst the beautiful Wasatch Mountains. We offer a full continuum of care, and what that means is that, we can support our clients and their families from day one all the way through their entire recovery journey. Our goal here at Wasatch Crest is for this to be your last time in treatment and the beginning of a life in recovery that will bring you joy and fulfillment and a sense of healing to you and your family and to those who love you.
To learn more about Wasatch Crest, call me, Jared, directly at 385-644-1500 and check out the website at wasatchcresttreatment.com. We went from like active addiction jail time to like the present real fast. So I'm going to slow you down and ask you some questions here.
That's easy.
Because here's the thing that I've realized. I get a lot of people that write into me, and people who are out in active addiction don't listen to this podcast. I've come to that term. Their family members might, and I really hope that's the case. A lot of the people that will listen to this podcast are people who are in early recovery, who are working that for you forklift job and security guard job. For me, it was a janitorial job, and they're thinking to themselves, I got 6 months, I got 9 months, I got maybe a year. Did I get clean for this?
Yeah.
And they're struggling. They have that devil and angel on each shoulder. What did your kind of early recovery look like as far as like cravings and triggers and rebuilding relationships? And give me kind of some of that mid-terrain from active use to the turnaround to you have a beautiful life now. Give me some of the gray.
Yeah.
Because I want people to know that like it doesn't happen overnight. You sitting here today didn't happen like that.
No.
It takes years
of hard work.
So talk to me about the early years. What's that look like?
I just didn't believe in myself, so I didn't feel like I deserved more than what I had. Right. Like I really struggled. Like my dad went to prison. We lost our house, our cars, things like that. And like, I knew what it felt like to have nothing in a sense, right? So anything that I did have, I was appreciative of, and I was okay with it. Like if I could feed myself, I'm cool. Like I just was okay with the way things were, right?
Which a lot of that's probably good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also like held me back from being happy, because I assumed that I was, but I really wasn't, right? And so I think a big part of it too is like, I'm a people person. I love people. I love
Yeah,
talking.
you
Like,
are.
like
Yeah.
if I go walk into a room, like I go around and, say hi to everybody, or whatever. Like I
Play with
just,
their dog.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, today.
Rock man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like your dog, I was just like, want to hang out with him, Um, but yeah, man, like I think that gray area was everybody when we help people, usually their primary thing is like, got to get back to work because that will make everything better.
Totally.
We know that's not the truth. We've seen it time and time again. Addiction doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter how much money you make, what business you own, whatever.
Whether you're the top man or the bottom man, it
Doesn't
don't matter.
matter. Right. And so when people think that that's the answer, we have to try to show them how to pump that brake, because realistically, like I helped a gentleman, he'd been working for this company for like 30 years. Like that's his stability, right? Big part of why he drinks is how miserable he is at that job. I helped him get
Sure.
into treatment, and he quit that job when he got out because he realized it wasn't benefiting him. And that's scary to do,
You
right?
saw that correlation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big part of his demise. And so for me, it was like, I think Lexi was the one that like, hey, you should try this. I mean, she still does it. You should try this. You should try this. Why don't you do this? Stuff like that. I think a big pivotal moment for me too was when I was driving forklifts and working security in that bar. Was I met a musician at the bar, and he was a nurse at a psych hospital in Salt Lake City.
Cool.
And we just got to talking, became really good friends. And he's like, you should come work there. And I was like, this is the reason, this is my purpose. Like,
That's cool,
'cause
man.
I don't want to be driving forklifts and
Sure.
bartending or security. And I took him up on that opportunity. Right. So at this time now, I'm probably like 28, 29 years old, maybe.
How much recovery time you got under your belt?
So that's like, is probably like 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And I remember started out at this psych hospital making $12.50 an hour.
Heck yeah.
Lexi Trayson was born about that time. Yeah. So, and she's going to school. Like it was rough. Like we lived with her parents, then we move back with her parents, stuff like that. But as like a 20-year-old dad, like I just grinded 12-hour shifts, minimum of 3 days a week, but I would always work overtime. But I only made $12.50 an hour, right? Like how many people do we help? They're like, I need to make this kind of money because everything will be okay.
Totally.
Actually, you should probably be a little humble by working, making $10 an hour, at the time, right? But I wasn't doing it for the money. I mean, I had to support my family, but I was doing it for the experience because I understood addiction. When I went to go work at the psych hospital, it was mental health, right? So I got a real good perspective of why I used because of my mental health issues, right? And of course, there's some that are more acute, whatever. But it really gave me a cool opportunity. I worked there for 3.5 years, and then moved into the recovery side of the industry and been there ever since.
I love that. And I think too many times we try to separate mental health and substance abuse. And to me, it's all the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Typically, for the most part, not every single person, I guess, I can't say 100%, but 99% of the people that I've heard their story or work with, whatever, the mental health came before the substance abuse. In fact, the substance abuse in some ways was the cure to the mental health.
Solution to the problem.
Thank you, right?
Yeah.
Was the solution. And I think about, there was I'm blanking on his name, but a dude that works in the industry posted on social media, and he had the tree of addiction, and it showed the roots, and it was the trauma and the abandonment and, not
Depression,
fitting
anxiety,
in, all that
yeah.
down at the root, right? And then you had the trunk and then the branches. The branches were like cocaine, alcohol, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's cool that you were able to get that job, have some introspection, right? Look within yourself and go, okay, maybe it wasn't just the drugs that did it. Maybe there was some mental health stuff that was going on, like seeing your dad go to prison. Just some of the stuff that you've shared that I can go like, well, yeah,
Trauma.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And so obviously I feel like that is a big shift when you start to become part of the solution and no longer part of the problem.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's a huge huge. It was for me. It's a huge momentum shift, right?
Absolutely.
In your recovery. Real quick, there's always like a dun. There's always like you're doing good, life's going good, and then either an event happens or like you go to the bathroom in a public place and there's a bag of meth sitting on the counter. Talk to me about the first time that you really had that option of like, okay, it's either cave or climb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time that happened in your life where you're like, where you consciously made the decision to walk away from it, or the craving or the trigger, or again?
Yeah. I mean, the cravings and the triggers were there like a monkey on my back.
For how long?
Oh, dude, a year or so.
Okay. It's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal,
maybe
guys.
2 years.
If you're listening to this, it's normal.
Yeah. Like, so I recommend this to everybody that I try to work with. Some people just can't do it. I understand it's hard. But the day I got out of jail, I changed my phone number and deleted every contact to my phone. Big part of that, while I was in jail, my mom had my phone, realized how much dealing I was doing, whether it was meth, weed, or ecstasy, right? So she had a real glimpse into what I was really into, right? Because people are hitting me up. They don't know I'm in jail.
Right.
Another really humbling experience was while I was in jail, I only had 2 people come see me. And one of them was my mom and one of them was my friend Carson, right? And that was humbling because all those people that I thought loved me, had my back, I'd done everything for, never showed up, right? I get it. I was only in there for 30 days. People have their lives, right? But for me, it meant a lot.
It was an eye opener.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I deleted my phone number and deleted every contact on my phone. I started fresh, right? Like how many people could say that they would really do that, right? Like I knew I couldn't drive down certain streets in Ogden, West Valley, Clearfield, Salt Lake City. I just knew I couldn't drive down those streets because, you know what? Let's just go check on my buddy, knowing that's justification to go use.
Totally.
Holding myself accountable to a certain extent, right? Like I had already done that, I don't want to do it anymore, but that willpower is hard, right?
Totally.
So, just trying to help people understand, like, listen, the moment that you have that little switch to justify, like if you're on a strict diet and like for me, when I diet, like if I have one piece of candy, I have the case of the F-its.
You're going to eat the whole bag?
Everything, dude, right? And then I'm eating everything that I shouldn't be eating, right?
Totally.
That's just my personality. I know that, right? But I also can have the discipline, right? But that like food's my thing now. It's very hard for me to control. It's the thing that when I had those cravings, I would try to change the chemistry, what I thought would change the chemistry in my brain, and that was to eat. So if I was craving, I would eat so that I didn't crave to go use, right? So, but then it became an unhealthy habit too of, portion control and, what I eat, things like that.
So, listen, a bad diet's not going to kill you as quick as meth use is.
100%. Like,
and listen, I appreciate you sharing that, that little secret for you. I had one person tell me who struggled with alcohol abuse. She said, I always had to have a drink with me.
Yeah.
Just having a drink with me would keep me from going to the liquor store because I would think, oh, I already have this drink. And whatever little tricks that we have to do.
You have to figure it out.
Right.
Right. Like a lot of smokers, like if they quit, they just have a straw just because of the habit. Right.
Totally.
Like part of the addiction is the habit that goes along with it, the ritual. Right. Like half of the ritual is me loading the pipe and smoking it. Right. It wasn't even about getting high. It was the high that I got from the ritual.
It's the chase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so those same things, you got to do that to change that behavior in that, process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm going to ask you the miracle question and don't feel like you have to answer immediately. Take a minute to think about it. As you have just shared before, active addiction, rock bottom, the climb back out, your life today, what it looks like. What are the things that if you look back are the modern day miracle moments, like the stuff that you would have never imagined at different points in your journey?
I mean, I never thought I'd have a house. Never thought I'd have like a functional family, like as like my wife and kids, like I came from dysfunction. That was normal. Right. So I never thought that I would actually be like genuinely loved, like
it's huge.
loved for who I am, not what I've done. You know what I mean? So, and that's like a great message to convey too, is like, your past is your past, right? Like that doesn't determine who you are. Your action today determines who you are.
And have to douse that microphone, boy.
Yeah.
You're on fire over
Yeah.
there. That's so true, though, man.
It's just because like we go into the victim state in that, right?
Mhm.
Like, poor me, look what I've done, things like that. I've lived in that space. I still do to this day on certain things,
I think it's
right?
part of being
It's
human.
pretty natural,
Yeah.
right? But I also have the ability to recognize that that's not true. That's the narrative of, my history, my trauma,
Yeah.
things of that, right? So, yeah, I think, my experience with that, it's taken, like, it was kind of crazy because when I was like 16, really quick, I had a friend that had committed suicide, and they played the Green Day song. Can't remember what it's called, but at his funeral.
Okay.
And I victimized my situation off of his death and that song at his funeral for years, until just like a couple months ago, it came on, and I told Lexi, I actually don't really hate this song. I made myself hate this song to be a victim to his circumstance, right? And she's like, I've never heard someone be that transparent and honest about being a victim about their situation.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty crazy the stuff that we come up with to be a victim about.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. For sure. And at 16, like, you're just trying to understand emotions and get through them.
Yeah.
So you can't judge yourself too hard. But it is
Yeah.
cool that today you can look back and go like, oh man, I totally used that,
It's
as
manipulation,
yep, rationalization,
woo me, yeah.
justification.
Yep, absolutely.
Totally. And I really appreciate you sharing that, Troy, because the people that are listening to this, like I said, maybe in that early recovery stage, and it's like, if you're listening to this, what are the things that would be your miracle moments, that potentially still could happen?
Yeah.
One of the things, and I'll share this, never say never.
Yeah.
Like after my divorce and everything that happened, we got no time to talk about that, but I always was like, I'll never get remarried.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have gotten remarried, that would have been such a sad part of my life, right? So never say never. If you're going through early recovery and you have an early, or you have been through a divorce and it was ugly and you're like, I'm never going to do that again, maybe soften that language a little bit.
Yeah.
Open yourself
Find
to the
out why.
opportunity.
Figure out why. Like, go to therapy and figure out why that. And it's probably because of the trauma that happened in that relationship, right? Like, I will never do that. I'll never trust that person again, right? But not everybody is that person, right? So
My truth. For
absolutely,
Sure. For sure.
like, I'm super grateful, like, that me and my ex, like, we didn't, stay together, because that would have really damaged her and I more, and my daughter, because she's now remarried, to a great guy. He's a great stepdad to my daughter, stuff like that, and then my daughter also gets me and Lexi as her support as well, as parents. So, like, if we would have went that route, I wouldn't have my other two kids. I wouldn't have the life that I have.
Right.
Maybe it would have been better. Maybe it would have been worse. Right.
You might have still been driving a forklift,
dude,
working a security job, eating a Hungry Man every night.
It might have been better. It might have been worse, but it wouldn't be as good as it is today. I'll tell you that much.
Totally.
So, and my answer isn't go find somebody, like,
no,
there's some, responsibility within yourself. Right. So, like, I think, another thing that we try to help people understand is the things that happened to you as a child weren't your fault, but now that you're an adult, you're responsible to fix that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially
you aren't responsible for the damage, but you are responsible for the healing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay. Last question here for you as we're kind of wrapping this thing up. And it's going to be a cliche, cheesy one.
Cool.
But if you had one thought or one message in the chance that somebody out there in active addiction stumbles upon this or gets sent to them, and right, like, what's your message to somebody who's either still suffering or in early recovery in that pivotal, I would say, within the 1 year mark?
I mean, this is going to be cliche too, but you're not broken and you're worth it, right? Like, you're worth fighting for. people that need our help don't realize the army that they have behind them, right? Because they're so isolated. We're all so isolated in our addiction that we don't understand that we will be building new relationships, but you're not alone. You know, like I said, cliche stuff that we always say, you're not alone, you're not broken, and you have a whole army behind you that you don't even know about. So for experience, you go to detox, you might meet a couple people. Sure. Go to residential, you really are going to meet some people that are going to have your back, might be a pillar in your life for the rest of your life. Then you get out, you get into sober softball, AA, NA, whatever. Now your army that supports you, no matter what you've done, who you are, it's like I said, the action that you take from that day on, right? So a part of me rebuilding my trust within the people that I loved was, I would show up early to like a birthday party. I would help get set up for the birthday party. I would stay through the whole birthday party, not running, right? And then staying after to clean up, right? Like people always say, well, why don't they trust me? Well, you've been in active addiction for 10 years. It might take you 10 years to gain that trust back.
Sure.
That you don't get to determine that for somebody else.
Right.
What it is show up, be of service, help out whatever way you can. And that's what it was for me. Like I would show up late, I would leave early because I want to get high. Here I am showing up and people are like, Troy's been here like the whole time. And he stayed and helped clean up, right? Like that speaks volumes about where you
they could
are.
tell it was different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because I'm always saying like you don't have to do it alone. In fact, you can't do it alone. So when you're like, you don't realize the army of people that can be behind you like that, dude, that gave me the chills. That's huge. Last thing, I know I said last question. This is going to be a resource question. Troy, I know you do interventions. I know you've worked in this industry for a long time. If somebody wants to seek you out for counsel, if somebody wants to seek you out for hire, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get in touch with you, bro?
Yeah. So we have a website. It's called lighthouseintervention.com. So we do intervention or recovery coaching, right? So for family members that it's kind of they don't know what to do anymore. We help prep the family, coach the family, facilitate the intervention. It's all out of love and respect. It's not a punitive thing. Like a lot of people take it that way. But once the intervention process happens, it's a very beautiful experience. And then you can reach me. My cell phone number is 801-425-5757. And yeah, just trying to help as many people as we can.
Call this dude. You won't find a better guy out there.
Thanks, man.
174 is wrapped up. Appreciate you, bro.
Thanks, brother.